As you get closer to retirement, have you ever considered moving some of your traditional IRA or 401k money into the Roth variation? Today's video, we're going to be looking at the pros and cons of it. This is a question that was posed to me a little bit earlier today. What is the advantages and the disadvantages of a Roth conversion? So when you have a traditional 401k or a traditional IRA, you do have the ability to essentially take that money and convert it into a Roth variation, but you will be required to pay the tax bill. Very important to understand with this conversion, you are transferring retirement funds from a tax deferred account into a tax deductible or a tax already paid account, which is the Roth variation. Now, when it comes to investing, when it comes to finance in general, I always recommend doing the Roth version because when you start looking at the future growth, if you're a younger generation, if you're in your 20s and 30s, if you're doing the Roth and paying the taxes now, chances are when you fast forward 40 years down the road, the growth alone is going to be able to cover the taxes. But let's get into this. So first of all, we're going to look at the advantages of the Roth conversion. So this again is taking money that is in that 401k or that traditional IRA and transferring it or converting it into the Roth. Now, the first one, which is the biggest one, anticipating a higher tax bracket in later retirement years. This, of course, for a lot of individuals is very dependent on how much you have. It's a little bit different if when you're getting to retirement and you have $100,000, $150,000, when you start looking at those tax brackets, what your required minimum distribution or RMDs are going to be can make a big difference. Then when you couple it with Social Security, again, this can make a big difference when you start having those mandatory withdrawals. That can put you into a higher tax bracket. A Roth conversion during the early years, essentially the gap or the spread between when you stop working and when you start drawing Social Security, you will be at your absolute lowest point. And that could be a good point to actually take and do some of the conversion, allowing you to convert it at a much lower tax bracket and usually at a much lower rate than you normally would do. Now, this, of course, could save you money in the long run. And it also, again, makes a difference on how much you have in these accounts, because when you start looking at the progressive tax system, there's a point where you're going to pay the same amount over a dollar amount, depending on exactly what you're converting. For instance, if you're converting, let's say $100,000, and you're in the 25% tax bracket and it all falls in there, you're going to have to pay 25% or $25,000 of that towards the tax bill for the year that it's converted, making sure that you have that money set aside, because if you're taking it out of the retirement funds, not only are you going to have that extra $25,000 that is from the retirement funds for the conversion, but you'll also have to pay the tax that is required on that as well. Now, the second one, the need for tax diversification in the income plan. Now, this is something that I look. So when you think of what your tax rate is going to be, it can be incredibly difficult because we don't know what the government's going to do. We don't know what the tax rate is going to be in the future, which of course gives you a little diversification, meaning that if you do have a considerable amount of funds in a traditional account, you can even maybe not convert all of it to a Roth variation, but you can really convert some of it, knowing that the tax status could change in the future. And also remember, when it comes to Social Security and drawing Social Security, that is meant to replace roughly 40% of your income, which traditionally, just speaking in a general term, roughly replacing 85% of your income in retirement is what we normally see. You might not be, replacing 100% of those pre-retirement dollars, but you are replacing roughly 85% of your pre-retirement income when it comes to Social Security. So mathematically thinking about that, you have a pretty big chunk that you have to make up that is not going to be provided from Social Security. So there is going to be a point where it might make sense to leave some of the money that we have in here as the traditional that you're going to take the RMD. That is going to be the supplement to Social Security. That is going to be the money you're going to live on during those retirement years. Now, again, converting a portion of that to the Roth variant means that you have already paid the taxes. You're not required to take RMDs or required minimum distributions on that, and you can let that money grow tax-free. That can be kind of the backup that you've already paid taxes on when you get there. Now, of course, when you think of this, the current tax situation, really optimizing your overall tax liability and how much you're going to owe. If you're getting into retirement and you have $3 to $5 million in a traditional plan, the RMDs on there are going to be huge, when you start getting to retirement, there is actually a multiplication factor that you can look at the IRS and see what the RMDs are going to be when you get into these much larger tax accounts. That could be, again, a big reason for the conversion. Now, the last one for the advantages in here, benefiting high income heirs with tax efficient inheritance. That's right. If you're an heir or if you're transferring money into or giving it to someone else at a higher tax bracket, leaving them a Roth IRA means they are inheriting this wealth tax free. That's right. The money has already been paid in there, meaning that for me personally, I have a small portion of my income or my retirement planning that is set up in the traditional method. I have a big chunk of it or a majority of it that is set up in the Roth between Social Security, between what we have saved, between what we have in our traditional accounts. The Roth money is essentially going to be what is going to go to the heirs, which of course can have a very significant benefit. When you want to pass on considerable estate or assets to other individuals, it can make a big difference because, again, you've already paid the tax on this and it is growing tax-free. Now, you also have to remember when it comes to these conversions, when it comes to retirement funds in general, when you retire at 65, 68, 70, when you start drawing Social Security, that is not the point when you're going to die, when you're going to use all the money, where you're going to have access to everything. That is the point where you're going to start living that retirement life. And with that, you're going to be taking regular distributions, but you still need your money to grow. This is something that I've really stressed with a lot of individuals. I see them getting to retirement. They pull out all of that 401k money. They park it into an IRA account at a bank or a credit union. It grows at a 0.3%, and they just really churn and take a lot of money out of there, way over the 4%, which is recommended. But overall, depending on what you need to supplement your income, what kind of retirement you want, what kind of lifestyle you want to have during retirement, it's going to make a big difference on how much you're taking out of there. Now, of course, when it comes to the Roth conversions, there is also drawbacks. It is not all positive. It is not all really, just everything convert to a Roth. When you think of some of the tax brackets, being in a higher tax bracket right now versus later. So a lot of people right now during working, if you have one income, if you have two incomes, if you have a part-time side hustle like we have here on YouTube, and of course, if you like the content I'm putting out, definitely subscribe to the channel. But when you think of having multiple sources of income, really generating a lot more income right now means that my tax bracket could be significantly higher than we're going to see during those retirement years. And like I said before, when you have the little valley where you quit working and really lower your income, and then the point when you start getting Social Security, you can do quite a bit of a conversion in there. But of course, if I'm paying, 25, 28% right now, during retirement, I could be paying 15% as supplementing, which of course would not be beneficial, short of where the growth factor could come in, but it would make a big difference. Now, the second one, upfront tax payments. This is the significant drawback, and this is the big one. When you do the conversion, you have an immediate tax liability when you do the conversion. And of course, requiring to pay these might tap into savings, might tap into other investment accounts, and it can negate the long-term benefit of the conversion if you're drawing money from other places. Now, for me, I have done Roth conversions in the past. So we took $50,000 that was traditional money. We moved it into a Roth, and we did this at $10,000 a year. And at that $10,000 a year, we were just under the tax bracket that we wanted to be at a roughly 22%. But moving $50,000 from a traditional account into the tax-free account has grown exponentially. And all of the money that we have grown in there, which at this point is well over doubled, it is completely tax-free. Again, that is money that is earmarked for my kids, for my grandkids, that we're not going to be using that Roth variation for. Now, the final one in here, conflicting with charitable giving strategies. So for those very high income earners, for those planning significant charity donations through the QCD, qualified charitable distribution, Roth conversions might not be ideal. Definitely check with your tax advisor, but it allows for tax efficiency when you're giving money to charities and going directly from a traditional IRA. You could lose some of the benefits if you are converting this to a Roth, making a big decision. Now, of course, when it comes to these in the conversion, always talk to a tax advisor. If you're not willing to put in the time and the effort and understanding exactly what a conversion could mean for you. And overall, like I said, even thinking of a younger generation, putting money into the Roth variation does make a really big difference. You don't get the upfront tax benefit now, but when you start looking at 20, 30, 40 years down the road, the benefit and the growth that you're going to see in that time frame is going to far eclipse what you get from a traditional account. Personally, that's the reason why when it comes to a 401k like me, I put everything into a Roth 401k. I do have the option if I'm making contributions into an IRA. I only do an IRA that is invested in its entirety. I have links down below from M1 Finance. That is where I have my Roth IRA that is invested in the market. It is the only way that I recommend it. You have to have the money in the market. You have to have the money that has the ability to grow. You don't want it sitting there. You don't want it essentially not earning anything or not multiplying the wealth to really create it. All right, guys, so that is going to do it for today's video. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. And as always, thank you guys for watching.